You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
In a world where podcasters talk about the same old pop culture topics, two heroes must rise to bring forth a new era of podcast entertainment. The Cigar Nerds Podcast. Movie reviews, pop culture debates, news, science, and even beer reviews. We're stranger than Stranger Things and funnier than an evil sewer clown. CigarNerdPodcast.com. We all smoke down here, Georgie.
Welcome again to the Monster Sci-Fi Show podcast. I am your host, The Monster, back to give you my review of Justice League. So yes, finally we have Justice League on the big screen and not the animated series or the individual heroes that DC's been putting out, but the culmination of these heroes to be put together on the big screen. Kind of like what the Marvel side has done already. So, let me get started with this quick note. When my wife and I went to see Justice League in Orlando, this is right after Thanksgiving, we had decided to go to the movies on the weekend at the AMC at Downtown Disney, which is now Disney Springs. For the most part, I'm not having a problem with the seats per se. I'm having a problem with the location of the seats. So now that a lot of theaters are doing reserved seatings, you get to pick your seats, which is not a bad thing. The problem lies is that because this theater had 2 levels, no one told us that it was on a 3rd floor, which is a balcony, which is looking down at the screen. Because from the image of where the seats are, I'm just picking whatever seats are available up front and towards the middle. So I had picked letter M. So when we get into the theater, we're up to L. We went all the way to the back and we were at L. I was like, where the hell is M? No one told us that this was going to be 2 flights up. So, unhappy about that. And then to boot, you know how you have those nice reclining seats? I was looking forward to those nice reclining seats. The problem lied is that because we're in the front of the row, there was a barrier in front of us. So in order for you to see the screen below, you literally had to have your seat upright and actually at times prop yourself up even a little bit more just to see the bottom row. So yeah, I was kind of pissed about that because I wanted to enjoy myself. So I'm not going to do AMC at Disney Springs probably ever again. I didn't care for that movie experience. Not to say that all AMC theaters are terrible, but that was one that I just didn't feel that customer service wise, hey, let you guys know you're going to be sitting high up and the first row kind of sucks a bit. So whatever the case. And even if I sat in the very top row, still looking down, I still couldn't see anything. It was horrendous. So bad planning on their part for that theater. So keep it to 1 level. Even if it's small and intimate, I'd rather do that than be huge and awkward and troublesome at times to see anything. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about Justice League because that's what I'm here to do. I'm going to talk about real quickly about the whole DCEU versus MCU. Let's face it, that Marvel really has not so much the market share, but it has a very dominant force when it comes to their movies. Superhero movies, Marvel has it, hands down. This is kind of like the heyday of Apple when it put out its iPhone. No one else was doing this, and in the right way. So everyone else was playing catch up. And DC is the number 2 guy in this scenario, and they try to figure out a way to kind of put our characters into play a lot quicker than what Marvel has done. In the time since we'll watch this movie to this review, we've now seen Avengers, the Infinity Wars trailer out, which is coming out next year, and that's a culmination of 10 years in the making. And frankly, DC does not have the time nor the money to put that kind of effort into something that's going to be paying off down the road. We started this adventure with Man of Steel only a couple of years ago, and we had Man of Steel, Suicide Squad, and Wonder Woman. But it hasn't always been well received. For me, I appreciate what Zack Snyder is doing with his vision. I have loved everything he's done to date. I love Man of Steel. I like Batman vs. Superman. I have no problems with the darker tone. You know, to me, it was a better comparison to what Marvel was doing because, you know, everyone is all happy and jokey and whatever. Well, sometimes you want to have some substance and something a little bit darker. A lot of people didn't care for that, and I understand their point of view. Well, they got him to do Justice League, and, you know, this is what we're talking about, are the results. It comes down to this moment. Does Justice League fly? Does it soar? Does it promise everything that the Avengers could gather and put to the screen? Well, let's start off with this. The Danny Elfman score, which I was ecstatic that he was being brought in because I like Danny Elfman. He's a fantastic composer, and he's done numerous films with Tim Burton. I mean, for God's sakes, he did the Batman and the Batman Returns soundtrack. His themes are iconic, and of course that led into the animated series for Batman. So why not bring him back? I think right at the premiere, the 17th of November, if I remember correctly, Hoopla, through my library's digital services, there's Justice League. So I got to listen to the whole soundtrack. Being that I love soundtracks a great deal, I like to see, can the music stand for itself? Meaning, without any visuals, can you feel the emotions coming through this? Is it iconic? And for the most part, it worked on so many levels. Yes, we still get the Wonder Woman theme from Hans Zimmer that he did from Batman vs. Superman. And of course, that also gets played into her movie. But we also get treated to Danny Elfman's version of Batman's theme. And at a couple of points, we do hear John Williams' Superman theme. So I'm flipping off the walls like, I can't believe this is happening. This is going to be so damn cool. Except when I see the movie, there's Wonder Woman theme. I can hear her clearly, and there's her scene. But when it comes to Batman stuff, or even Superman's, it's kind of muddled. And I'm not sure if it's the sound mix, or it's just too much on the visuals and the explosion just drowning out the music. But it wasn't there. I still listen to the soundtrack, and I'm just dumbfounded that it's pretty damn good. Compared to the Avengers soundtrack, this is pretty damn good. But it didn't play well on the big screen. And I'm kind of disappointed by that. So, okay. Let's get on to the heart of the matter and talk about Justice League in general. Well, there are good things about Justice League I liked. And there was a lot of bad things that I did not like about Justice League, and that's okay. That's okay. That's what I have to keep on telling myself. That's okay. All right, let's start off with the bad crap. Steppenwolf, the big baddie for this movie, completely CGI. And it's not even good CGI. I mean, it's pure crap. It's god-awful. And, you know, at one point, it's like, as long as they don't zoom into his face, he's okay. But when he's starting to talk, it's like this weird delayed reaction with his mouth. The words are coming out, but his mouth are trying to form the words. You know, it's like one of those weird AI, you know, sex dolls that are trying to mimic human talk, and like it doesn't work. So let's just put all that aside. The other distracting thing, and it's hard not to know this because you knew this going in, was the Superman stash. Anytime Superman was on the screen, you always are looking at the bottom, or actually the top of his lip to see, does it look weird or does it look normal? Because if it looks normal, then you know that was the stuff that Zack shot. If it looks weird, that's all the stuff that Joss directed, which they had to do the whole CGI removal stuff. I mean, for God's sakes, in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which I just watched on Netflix with my wife, you know, they de-age Kurt Russell, and he looks fantastic. Not like in a weird, what the hell did you do to his face? He looks like the young Kurt Russell. So for the love of me, why is it so much harder to take off the stash on this one little area of the face as opposed to the whole thing? I don't know. I want to say it's because they didn't have a whole lot of time to fix this problem, and Paramount was being a real douche about the whole, oh, he's got to have his mustache for our movie, so screw you, Warner Brothers. So, yeah. The Flash. Barry Allen's sequence of running, honestly, the Quicksilver from the X-Men movies did it right. Did it perfect. It's better than the Quicksilver from the Age of Ultron, hands down. But what I saw, I'm like, that's all there is? There's nothing different. That's what you see in the trailers. So I didn't feel impressed by what I saw with the Flash and his running. And even towards the end, he's running kind of weirdly. So I don't know what the hell is he doing. And then the other thing in the course of the story is that Steppenwolf sets up some kind of base, I guess in Russia. And there's a family that we keep coming back to over and over again throughout this whole movie that I'm like, what's the whole point of this family? And what the hell is, what, to get royalties every time they're on the screen? Because it just didn't pay off. It didn't have, it could have been, you know, a Russian family, and it doesn't make a difference who you put in there. But they kept coming back to them as if there was some kind of significance to them. And there was none. So I don't know if this is Joss's plan or Zack's plan. But in either case, it was just god awful. God freaking awful. All right. Let me go into the good stuff. All right. Right from the very beginning, when we have the arrival of Steppenwolf, he's coming to Themyscira. Because what happened was that there's these 3 mother boxes, and they're all been separated. You put them all together. I don't know what the hell they're supposed to do, but if you put them all together, I guess you get a one big box. There you go. But Themyscira had one box. Atlantia had another, and there was another one buried by men somewhere. But the one with Themyscira, hell of exciting, scenery did we get from that battle with them keeping that box out of Steppenwolf's reach. Fantastic. I was so impressed right from the very beginning. I'm just like, if this is any kind of prelude to what we're going to see with the Justice League, I'm in. So we have a great sequence with that. Of course, Steppenwolf finds the second box underwater, and hence what we got. The Atlantis or Atlantean people. Mira is in there, and she does her thing with the water. It looks kind of cool. The only weird part about it is just on Themyscira, there were like thousands of women warriors there. And underwater, the Atlanteans, they're just kind of like, there's Bob and Jack and Jeff. And that's all it seems to be. And Mira. Of course, Aquaman does make an appearance there, and he does his fighting. So it's okay. And I'm actually happy for it because, again, one of the weird things about Aquaman is that he's not a well-respected character. I mean, they kind of play around with the whole, do you talk to fish, that kind of thing. And I get that. But at least it made him a badass. And that's something that I would never have ever put together, or those words, that Aquaman is a badass. Never. But in any case, that was a great sequence. And then, to me, the best moment, the highlight of this whole movie, it has nothing to do with the climax, because the climax is... But when Superman is brought back, of course, he's not himself. He has to... not so much defend himself, but the heroes are trying to contain him because he's not himself. So you have Aquaman, you have Cyborg, you have Wonder Woman, all holding him down. And he's holding them off pretty easily. But then the Flash goes into movement. This is the sequence. This is the moment that I've waited, that made me the happiest, because it paid off in spades for this big DC fans. But as Flash is running, and of course, in his speed time, everything else is slowed, almost at a standstill. As Flash is approaching Superman, you see the back of Superman's face, or the side profile, I should say, and you can see Superman's eyes rolling back to his corner eye. And then all of a sudden, his head starts to turn. And then the Flash, it goes back to his face. His reaction is priceless. It's really funny as hell, because he is scared that he's never saw anyone be able to do what Superman is able to do, is match him on his speed. And it's fantastic. It really was the best sequence out of that whole movie. So right after that sequence, Batman brings out the big guns, which turns out to be Lois Lane, who is able to bring him back to himself, but not before getting into Batman's face and really like nailing him and telling him, "Do you bleed?" Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. You gave me exactly what this DC fan wanted, and I applaud them. I was beyond myself. Okay. So aside from that, what else did I like about this? We do have Cyborg, who I was kind of iffy about at the first versions of him. But I actually kind of dug the way he was performing. I liked his take on the character. And in the very end of all this, and towards the end of the climax, he says "booyah," which is, I bursted out laughing really out loud, because if you know Teen Titans Go, that's Cyborg's thing. He says "booyah." So it really warmed my heart that this was put into the movie and made this character someone I didn't really care for into someone that I actually did, because of the reference to a stupid animated series. I mean, even Barry's backstory, I really got to appreciate. And I liked Barry himself. Not so much the Flash. Barry is perfect being the comedic person to have that lightness about the whole movie. So when we have finally the team all together, even Superman is in the mix. His costume is lighter, and when they're fighting Steppenwolf, at one point, there's a big explosion that Cyborg has been holding off the merging of the Cyborg was holding off on the merge of these mother boxes. Superman was there to help, and the explosion, knocked him to his feet. And Superman is laughing, saying how much it hurts to his feet. That was fantastic. It's those kind of moments that made this movie worth it for me. Despite all the fact that there were problems going into this movie, I still liked this movie a lot. I had a good time with this. And I do have, again, problems with the whole DCEU makeup and what they're going to be doing. But for the most part, I was happy with this. It's not perfect, but it's perfect enough for me. So, and of course, I forgot to mention the post-credit scene in which we get Luthor, who is now out of jail. We have Deathstroke appearing on Luthor's yacht, and he's talking about how he wants to have his own Legion or League. So we're going to have their own Legion of Doom coming up. And if they do that, I will be happy. Rather than, well, can we do a Thanos kind of storyline? No, screw it. Let's come up with the Legion of Doom. Let's plant that and be Justice League 2 down the road. If we get that far. That's the whole iffy part. If we get that far. All right, so let's get into the fallout. Okay. As of right now that I'm recording this is December 10th. The movie has made over $600 million worldwide, which it was iffy that it would even go that high, but worldwide is able to do that. Okay. Now, of course, domestically, it's less than Wonder Woman, Suicide Squad, Batman vs. Superman, and Man of Steel. But when you have a budget plus reshoots and that stupid mustache removal, it pushed that thing over $300 million to make. So it's not that they've made money. They still have to do, I think, another $100 million in order to break even because of course, the marketing. So it's doing what it can do. But honestly, at this point, DC should just reconsider and not compete. Don't compete with the MCU. Do your own thing. When I look at Marvel as a whole versus DC as a whole, I did a podcast a couple of months ago about Marvel versus DC, in which it was a better franchise. Marvel has better movies. TV, it's okay. I mean, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is good. We have the Netflix stuff is good. But forget the Inhumans. When it comes to the animated stuff, all they do is freaking Spider-Man. That's all they freaking do. And then the Avengers series, that first couple of seasons, fantastic. And then they rechanged it again and still called it the exact same thing. It was horrible. So all their animated stuff sucks. DC, while there are still some strong movies, hence like Superman, back in 1978, if I remember correctly, the Richard Donner film, that was the benchmark. Because of that movie, we have superhero movies today. So that alone is something to be recognized. Although, again, Marvel does better movies, DC did it first. We also have better TV properties. The CW, DC TV, fantastic stuff. They're doing what the MCU does on the big screen, but they're doing it on a weekly basis. And then when they do the crossover, please as punch. Now, of course, animated side, DC, hands down, fantastic. So, as a whole, DC does kill it than Marvel. So let's not kid ourselves. DC is a good property, and so is Marvel. But Marvel has problems, just like DC has their problems. So, but in any case, when we're going to talk about competing against the MCU, DCEU, we can just forget it. We'll do our movies. I mean, we're going to get an Aquaman movie next year. Wonder Woman 2 will make it soon because of what it was able to do this year. Also, forgot to mention, we have Shazam that's being cast. We are getting a brand new Batman trilogy by Matt Reeves, who did the Planet of the Apes revival series. With or without Ben Affleck, who knows? But after that, we don't know about the Green Lanterns. But I'm more concerned about, will we get the Flash and the Flashpoint Paradox movie? If we do that, I would be happy with that, at the very least. So even if we don't get a Justice League 2, or even Man of Steel 2, as long as we get a Flash, I'll be happy. So, talked about the whole problems going in, problems watching the movie, but there are things about this whole thing that kind of clouds the whole success for Justice League. You can start off with Zack himself, Zack Snyder, who, again, really pushed this whole Zack-verse-ish. It's his tone, his direction, his visual stance on making this universe Zack's. Kind of like with Watchmen. Albeit, it's not as dark, but I was happy with what he gave us with Man of Steel, and I was ecstatic with Batman vs. Superman. And yes, Lex Luthor was not the greatest. I admit that. That's not the problem. The problem is that people complain, oh, you only fought for 20 minutes, and that was it. Well, look, you know in the very end, they're not going to kill each other. So, spoiler alert, that's not going to happen. But what you gave us, it's exactly what I wanted. It was exactly what a lot of fans wanted. So, if you appreciate Zack, you trust in Zack. And I did, 100%. I had no qualms about this. Every time, like, oh, fans are having issues with their movie. No. I like what Zack has done up to now. And if and when he comes back, I'm sure I will like what he does in the future. So, and the reason why I bring that up, because, you know, in the news, death of his daughter played a big part because, unfortunately, she committed suicide, and he tried to lose himself in the post-production work of Justice League, and it couldn't be done. So this is where we had to bring in Joss. So again, he's a great director, capable director to do this easily. But again, when he's doing the reshoots and you had that whole problem with Superman, you know, Joss can bring in some sensibility, but it's, when I look at the whole picture itself, it's very uneven. It's very patchy. It's not like when they talk about Rogue One, in which there were two directors, but Gareth Edwards got the full credit. There were a lot of reshoots, but I couldn't tell where the reshoots happened, except for the ending, of course. But it was seamless, and it was perfect. Here, it's just very awkward at times. So, you know, Zack has a vision, and so does Joss, but Joss is trying to do Zack's version or his version of Zack's version. So it doesn't work. And then we have Danny Elfman, who was brought in. So when Joss was brought in, he brought in Danny Elfman, and he kicked out Tom Hulkenberg, who was Junkie XL. And he hadn't worked with Hans Zimmer in the last couple of superhero movies for DC. So I'm kind of curious as to why this happened all of a sudden. And there is a petition out there for Warner Brothers and DC to re-release this movie, or when it gets to be put out on DVD, show us the full version. And in some cases there is a 3-hour version, some there is not. Some cases there is a Superman in a black outfit, and some there are not. So I don't know what the hell is going on, but I would love to see that version. Because when you look at the big problem also, is that Warner Brothers decided, let's keep this movie to 2 hours right off the bat. So that's one restriction. The other one is that the CEO and the president wanted to preserve their bonuses, so they had to make sure that this movie came in this year because of the whole AT&T merger that was going on. So if it was pushed to next year, there was no guarantee that it will be they would be getting their bonuses, because they may not be there next year. So you had a lot of emphasis on getting this movie done quickly and short. And this is what you get. So again, sometimes you get these creative notes from the higher-ups that don't necessarily lend itself well to the art that is being presented in front of you. And that's unfortunate. Watch Justice League. You will be at least entertained, at the very least, from some wonderful moments from what we get from Zack. And hopefully we'll get something better down the road from other characters. Alright, so that's going to be the end of my podcast. Remember, you can always follow me on the various social networks. Please email me at monsterscifishow@gmail.com. So, again, thank you very much for listening to me and to the Monster Sci-Fi Show podcast. It's sci-fi from a certain point of view. Good night.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network, your station for all things geek, classic, current, and beyond. Be part of the crew at esonetwork.com.